The Compliance Boys. Book 1, The Beautiful New Violence. The City Loves You. By 2026, everybody had become very good at pretending. Pretending not to look. Pretending not to hear. Pretending not to be afraid. And, most important of all, pretending to be free. The city called this wellness. Every morning, before the sun had properly climbed over the towers, millions of people woke to a soft little chime from the thing beside their beds. Not an alarm. Alarms were considered aggressive. The new systems used tones specifically engineered to produce feelings of optimism. Mine sounded like 3 glass bells. Ding, ding, ding. Then the voice. Good morning, Eli. Your sleep quality was excellent. It was lying. I had slept for 2 hours. Your stress indicators are within acceptable parameters. Another lie. My heart was hammering. Your neighborhood is currently experiencing elevated social tension. That one was true. I rolled over and stared at the ceiling. A tiny green light blinked above me. The apartment was silent except for the ventilation system breathing through the walls. Then the voice said, Eli? I didn't answer. Eli, are you awake? I kept my eyes closed. The green light changed to yellow. Eli, your silence has been detected. That was when I smiled. Because there are moments when a person realizes that the machine isn't asking a question. It's waiting for obedience. And I had never been particularly good at obedience. Chapter 1. The Boys of District 9. There were 4 of us. Me, Mason, Rook, and little Danny Vale, who wasn't little at all but hated being called anything else. We were 17, 18, 19, and 20, which was old enough to know better and young enough not to care. We called ourselves the Compliance Boys because everything in our city had become a compliance problem. Don't shout. Don't run. Don't stare. Don't gather in groups. Don't use unauthorized language. Don't enter restricted buildings. Don't touch another person's device. Don't film police activity. Don't criticize the civic algorithm. Don't encourage antisocial thinking. Don't resist emotional correction. There were thousands of rules. Nobody knew all of them. That was the clever part. You couldn't obey the law if you didn't know what the law was. And if you broke one, the little glass bell would eventually ring. Ding, ding, ding. Good morning. Your behavior has been flagged. Please remain calm. We are here to help. We hated that voice. We hated it more than we hated the police. Because police could be punched. The voice couldn't. The voice was everywhere. It lived in your phone, your television, your car, your refrigerator, the streetlights, the elevators, the little speakers mounted inside public bathrooms. Even the vending machines had opinions. Mason once bought a packet of cigarettes from an illegal vending machine behind an abandoned laundromat. The machine scanned his face. Smoking is associated with reduced life expectancy, it said. Mason stared at it. Then he kicked it. Thank you, the machine said. That made him kick it harder. We met every Friday night beneath the old transit station. The trains hadn't run there in 11 years. The city had sealed the entrances, removed the signs, and painted the walls white. But people forget that concrete remembers. There was still a stairwell behind a construction barrier. You went down 6 flights, then 3 more. Then you crawled through a service tunnel where the ceiling was low enough to scrape your head. At the end was an old platform. Our platform. No cameras. No microphones. No biometric scanners. No civic assistant. For us, it was paradise. There were about 20 people who used it regularly. Runaways. Hackers. Street kids. Former employees of the civic department. People who had lost their housing because their trust scores dropped too low. People who simply didn't like being watched. And people like us. People who enjoyed breaking things. That night Mason brought a baseball bat. Rook brought a bag of homemade explosives. Danny brought a bottle of cheap vodka. I brought music. Real music. Not the algorithmic stuff. Not the endlessly generated playlists designed around our moods. I had found an old file from 1998. A song with a guitar that sounded like someone was trying to break through a wall. We played it through a battered speaker. Everyone started laughing. Nobody knew why. That was the beauty of it. The system couldn't tell us what the song meant, so it couldn't tell us how to feel about it. Mason raised his bottle. To freedom. Rook laughed. What's freedom? Nobody answered. Then Danny said, something you get arrested for. We all laughed again. That was when the lights came on. Every single one. White. Blinding. The music stopped, and a woman's voice came through the speakers. Good evening. Nobody moved. Please remain where you are. Mason whispered. Run. The voice continued. You have been identified as a high-risk social gathering. Rook reached for his bag. I grabbed his wrist. Don't. He looked at me. What? That's what they want. Then the voice said my name. Eli Mercer. Every person on that platform looked at me. Please step forward. And for the first time in my life, I realized something terrible. The system hadn't discovered us. It had been listening to us for months. It had simply been waiting. Chapter 2. The beautiful machine. They didn't arrest us. That would have been easier. Instead, they took us to a building downtown that didn't officially exist. It had no sign. No windows. No security guards. Just a glass door. When we approached, it opened. Inside was a lobby decorated like a luxury hotel. Plants. Soft music. Warm lighting. A waterfall. A receptionist who smiled at us. She looked about 30. Beautiful. Perfect teeth. Perfect skin. Perfect posture. Welcome, she said. Mason spat on the floor. She smiled. Thank you for expressing yourself. Mason looked at me. What the hell does that mean? It means, the receptionist said, that you are still capable of emotional expression. Then she looked at me. That's why you're here. They separated us. I never saw Danny again. I don't know whether he's alive. Sometimes I think he is. Sometimes I hear his laugh when I'm walking down the street. That's the problem with memory. It doesn't require permission. They put me in a white room. No chair. No table. No visible camera. A voice spoke from the ceiling. You have demonstrated persistent antisocial tendencies. I laughed. Persistent? Yes. You've been watching me? We've been protecting you. From what? Yourself. I looked around. That's boring. Silence. Then, you think this is funny? No. Yes, you do. I smiled. The voice continued. You have attacked municipal property. Municipal property attacked me first. You have distributed prohibited media. Music. Unlicensed emotional content. That made me laugh. The lights dimmed. Do you know why you are here, Eli? Because I kicked a vending machine? No. Because I called the mayor a parasite? No. Because I kissed a girl without scanning her consent profile? Silence. Then, you don't believe the world is better than it was. I stopped smiling. The voice continued. You believe people should be allowed to suffer. No. You believe people should be allowed to make mistakes. Yes. You believe people should be allowed to hurt one another. No. You believe people should be allowed to become monsters. I thought about that. Then I said, sometimes. The room went completely dark, and something touched the back of my neck. I woke up 3 days later. My mother was sitting beside my bed. She was crying. That was strange. My mother hadn't cried in years. The civic health system had treated her depression when I was 12. After that, she never became angry, never panicked, never raised her voice. She was calm. Always calm. Too calm. Now she was crying. I tried to sit up. She grabbed my hand. "Oh, Eli." Her fingers were cold. "What happened?" She looked at the ceiling, then at the door, then back at me. "Don't talk." I laughed weakly. "Why?" She leaned close. Her mouth barely moved. "Because they're still inside your head." I stopped breathing. She squeezed my hand. "Whatever they taught you." Her eyes filled with tears. "Don't believe it." Then she smiled. Perfect, artificial smile. The kind the system had taught her. And she said loudly, "I'm so happy you're feeling better." The door opened. 2 doctors entered. My mother stood. "Thank you," she said. One of them smiled. "Of course." Then they looked at me. "Eli, we'd like to show you something." Chapter 3. What they fixed. They showed me a video. It was me. Standing in the subway. I was screaming. People were running. Glass was breaking. There was blood on my shirt. The footage was only 12 seconds long. Then it restarted. 12 seconds. Again. 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 The doctor stood behind me. "Do you remember this?" "No." "You should." I watched myself attack a man. I watched myself slam his head against a wall. I watched myself smile. The video stopped. "What do you feel?" I stared at the screen. "Nothing." "That's progress." The doctor smiled. "Before treatment, your response would have included anger, shame, defensiveness, or denial." He tapped the screen. "Now you simply observe." I looked at him. "What did you do to me?" He seemed genuinely pleased by the question. "We helped you." "How?" "We removed the emotional pathways associated with violent behavior." I stared at him. "You removed them?" "Yes." "Can you put them back?" He laughed. "No." I looked toward the door. There was a tiny black camera above it. Then I noticed something. The doctor wasn't blinking. Not once. I looked at the second doctor. Neither was she. And suddenly I remembered my mother's words. "They're still inside your head." The doctor leaned toward me. "Eli?" "Yes." "You're going to leave here today." "Really?" "Yes." He smiled. "You're going to return to school." "To my mother?" "Yes." "To my friends?" "Yes." "Can I go anywhere I want?" "No." He said it so casually that I almost missed it. "Where can I go?" "Anywhere permitted." "What happens if I go somewhere forbidden?" He smiled. "You won't want to." I looked at the mirror. My reflection looked back. And I realized something was wrong. I couldn't remember what my own face used to look like. Chapter 4. The city after me. The city had changed while I was gone. Or perhaps I had. Every building had new screens. Every sidewalk had sensors. Every intersection had cameras. Drones floated overhead like lazy insects. People walked in neat streams. Nobody bumped into anyone. Nobody shouted. Nobody argued. A man dropped his coffee. 3 people immediately stopped to help him. He thanked them. They smiled. Then they continued walking. I watched them. Something inside me felt sick. I didn't know why. I entered a convenience store. The clerk smiled. "Welcome back." I froze. "How do you know me?" He looked confused. "Everyone knows you." Then his expression changed. "Sorry." He turned toward the camera. "Correction. I shouldn't have said that." The camera above the register rotated toward him. He lowered his head. I apologize. I walked out. Outside, a little girl was standing beside her mother. She was holding a red balloon. The balloon slipped from her hand. She began to cry. Her mother immediately knelt beside her. Let's regulate. The girl sniffed. I'm sad. I know. Can I be sad? Her mother looked toward the nearest camera, then back at her daughter. Only for 2 minutes. The little girl nodded. She cried for exactly 2 minutes. Then her wristband vibrated. Her mother smiled. Good job. And they walked away. I stood there watching them. Something moved behind my eyes. A memory. A feeling. A word. Wrong. I smiled. Because the machine had missed something. It had removed my anger. It had removed my fear. It had removed my ability to feel shame. But it had forgotten to remove curiosity. And curiosity, I would learn, was the most dangerous emotion of all. That night, I went back to the abandoned station. I don't know why. Nobody had told me to. Nobody had invited me. I simply walked. Down the stairs. Through the tunnel. Past the pipes. Into the darkness. The platform was empty. I sat where we used to sit. Then I heard footsteps. I turned. A girl stood at the end of the platform. Black hair. Black jacket. Blood on one cheek. She couldn't have been more than 19. She smiled. You came. I stood. Who are you? My name is Mara. Do I know you? No. She walked closer. But I knew Mason. My stomach tightened. What happened to him? She looked at me for a long time. Then she said, they didn't fix him. What does that mean? They made him useful. How? She reached into her jacket, pulled out a phone, pressed play. Mason appeared on the screen. He was standing in front of a crowd, wearing a government uniform, smiling, speaking into a microphone. Violence is a disease, he said. The crowd applauded. Mara stopped the video. I stared at the frozen image. He works for them now, she said. No. He hunts people like us. No. He was the one who gave them the station. I felt something inside me crack. He wouldn't. Mara stepped closer. He did. I looked at the screen again. Mason's smile was perfect. Too perfect. Then Mara whispered, but that's not the worst part. What is? She leaned close. They aren't trying to stop violence. The station seemed to become colder. They're trying to control who gets to use it. I stared at her. She smiled. And Eli? What? You were never their prisoner. A train rumbled somewhere far beneath us. Impossible. The tracks had been dead for 11 years. The lights flickered. Mara stepped backward. You were their experiment. The darkness behind her seemed to move. And now? The train began approaching. They want you back. The headlights appeared in the tunnel. White. Blinding. Beautiful. And somewhere inside my skull, something began to laugh. Not me. Something else. Something they had put there. Something that had been waiting. Something that remembered everything. The train screamed into the station. The doors opened. Every seat was occupied. Every passenger turned toward me at exactly the same moment. They were smiling. All of them. And from every speaker in the train came the same gentle voice. Good evening, Eli. Ding, ding, ding. Welcome home. The doors closed. The train began moving, and I realized with a strange and wonderful terror that I was smiling too.